Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Listen, we have brewing news. This is her first interview post, and I'll say HERstoric vote. And so first, I'm going to ask you to quickly hit the share button, because we need the Mass 7th District to be aware of what just happened, what our Congresswoman is doing. She couldn't come on this morning because she was working and doing her job as she does as our Congresswoman. So I'm getting ready to bring her in so she can talk with us about this historic vote that just happened regarding the Build Better Act. And so without further ado, everyone, my friend and sister, and there's the smirk and the eyebrow, Congresswoman, this is your first interview over what you just did. Please tell us what you did. I'll shut up.
No audio.
You're good. You're good. Just go ahead and talk. We don't have her. We can hear you. I'm going to go ahead and tell her in the chat we can hear her. Ricardo, tell her she may have to give her phone permission. They're saying they can't hear me. I'm on. Can you guys in the audience hear me? Okay, they can hear me. Oh boy. Give your head. Oh Jesus. We're trying to get this together. Congresswoman, just Ricardo, just let her know to tell us what she did. We'll do it this way.
Okay.
Go ahead and
going to.
She's going to sign back out and give her laptop permission. And so I'm not going to tell y'all what she just did, but we're just going to have to hold tight. This is breaking news. Y'all know in the Java Cafe, things happen organically. And so we're going to get her in so she can give her laptop permission to hear. But our Congresswoman is coming in just a couple of seconds. So please bear with us as we work through the technical difficulties. She is just set up there, right there in DC. So they're going to get her all set and give her audio and camera permission, but just wanted to give some context to why she's coming in the room this morning is because there was something that just happened on the House floor. And so we're going to make sure that she's all set. We're going to wait because she's out there working for us, and we want to be sure that we can hear everything that she has to say. And so we appreciate your patience in waiting, and we're going to get her back in just a couple of seconds. Let me just make sure she needs to give permission to audio. Okay. We're going to work through it right here in real time. Thank you all so much for your patience, patience in getting her back in the room. We're going to get it worked out. If not, we will stop and come back in, and y'all can hear what she has to say. But we're going to get it all set in just a couple of seconds. While you're here and I have your attention, if you would like to come out and meet me in person, we're having the first live Java Cafe next Saturday, September 27th at 11 a.m. at a Black-owned business, a small business. And there is our Congresswoman there. She's going to get set up there. We're having that event next Saturday at Nia Grace's location, the Underground Cafe and Lounge, 742 Columbus Avenue. And we are going out to support this small Black-owned business on Small Business Saturday. And so please, if you would like to come out, we're going to have a chat. We're going to talk green space. Green in reference to, legalized marijuana here in Massachusetts, and also talk equity around space for Black and brown people, and also in that industry. So that's taking place next Saturday. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any text here. And I know our Congresswoman, I know she's probably like that eyebrows up and trying to get it together there, but we're going to work it out. Hold on. I just got a text. Okay. I just got a text from the staff that she's working on it there. And so we're going to be patient, and we're going to wait for our Congresswoman. Let me see what else I can talk about and let you all know that on Monday through Thursday, it's been Fridays here lately, but one major thing I can tell you, at 1 p.m., the superintendent of Boston Public Schools is coming into the Java Cafe today at 1 p.m. And so Brenda Casilius of the Boston Public Schools is coming in at 1 p.m. today. and we will talk with her about a lot that's going on around COVID positivity for both students and staff and those rates. We're going to talk about some of the incidents going on, like at the Henderson School, and also just across the board, what's in place to support our young people around social and emotional issues. And it's not loading for her. All right. We're trying to get things connected there. And I know she just came off the floor and voted. May have to try another browser. We're going to, if we have to come out and come back, we will do that. Again, I really appreciate all you guys' patience. Kenya, good morning. Let's go in and say some good mornings and get that together. And if she has to call, she can also call. Listen, we need the information. That's what we need more than anything. It's wonderful to have her on screen and see her wonderful face, but we need the information. So if it winds up being a phone call, it winds up being a phone call. I'm not worried about it. So let's get everything set here in case she does wind up calling. Kenya, good morning to you. Pastor Marion, good morning. Paula, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Rachel, good to see you in the room as well. Lainey, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Also, Nikki, good morning. Good to see you in the room as well. Darryl from Tennessee, good to see you in the room. Nariki, good morning. Beautiful. So they're going to have her call. Let me get my phone queued up, Jesus, so we can be all set, and we will go from there just to make sure she's good. And there she is. There is our Congresswoman. So let me get her hooked up to the Congresswoman. I'm just going to get you hooked up to the system, and we will be all set in 2 seconds. It's important for the information. We want to see your wonderful face, but we want to, Congresswoman, can you hear me? There she is.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and technical difficulties. You just came off the floor, and so we need to get the information. As much as we want to see your wonderful face, we need to get the information about what you just did in this historic vote there in Washington, D.C. So good morning. I have to ask first, how are you doing?
Well, I'm euphoric. I mean, it's a victorious day for the people, and it's not often that you see in your lifetime this sort of transformative impact that the Build Back Better Act will yield. I mean, we've seen some glimpses of it in things like the child tax credit and other investments. But what's happening with this Build Back Better Act, this is addressing generations of underinvestment, of policy violence, and communities who've been left behind. And the Massachusetts 7th is one of the most unequal districts in the country, the most unequal in our delegation, the hardest hit by the pandemic. And so we've been fighting for months now to advance fully the people's agenda, which is to advance the president's full Build Back Better agenda. And this morning, we made tangible progress towards that goal. So these are historic, transformative investments responsive to the needs of the people in housing, community-based services for the elderly and disabled, climate justice, universal paid leave, pre-K childcare, lowering prescription drug costs, expanding Medicaid. I mean, it's huge. So it feels good. And it's a victory. I'll credit to the movement, to my dedicated and hardworking staff, and to the people, most of all.
And to the people, most of all. And so, Congresswoman, we know that you have transitioned into advocacy at a larger level for us on a federal level. However, you represent the Mass 7th, and Boston is part of the Mass 7th. And there was something that happened a couple of weeks ago where we had a first. You were the first in this district, and then we also have a first in the person of someone you supported in our now Mayor Wu. And we're going to go back to all the wonderful work you did in federal, but you did want to at least, I wanted to check in with you about that, because as a woman and as a woman of color, what are your thoughts around this historic moment that has also happened in Boston history?
Sure. I mean, I think you have to give credit where credit is due. And, that victory is the capstone to a historic and unprecedented level of representation, caliber of talent in that primary field, a historic outcome with 2 women being in the final. And then the mantle being assumed by Mayor Janey at a time of unprecedented challenge for our city. Her stewardship should not be erased. What she was able to do when it comes to vaccination rates, our pandemic response, housing justice, fair free transit justice, her leadership when it came to the eviction moratorium, when the federal government was not standing in the gap. And so for that Black woman turn that mantle over to the first elected woman and woman of color to serve as mayor of the city of Boston. So all of those things. But honestly, as we highlight and celebrate the historic and diverse representation and incredible talent that was represented in that field in the primary and in the final and now where we find ourselves, that began long before the election cycle. And so it's impossible for me to not also give those flowers to those who came before us, to Bruce Bowling, to Sam Yoon, to Felix Arroyo, to Mel King, to Charlotte Golar-Ritchie. Ultimately, that decisive mandate by the people has everything to do with a coalition of voters, an electorate that has been expanded, and a foundation of which was laid. So it's now, I do want to say this. I am emboldened, encouraged, inspired by Mayor Wu's election. The true test at this moment will come down to policy and outcome.
Yep.
And I have confidence in her vision, in her stewardship, in her partnership to ensure that the funds that I fight to have appropriated to the city of Boston federally, that we are centering equity and justice in the distribution of those funds, and that she is leading and being bold and responsive to the needs of the people and acting boldly because the people have given her a decisive mandate to do that. And right out the gate, with her proposal for this large appropriation for fair free transit, which is so necessary to address the racial wealth gap, to improve social and economic mobility, it has the potential to be something truly game changing. And we saw that with the pilot, which she's extended, introduced by Kim Janey. Yep. And then with the historic appointment of Shagin Itawu.
Wait, Congresswoman. I wanted to intro. So, okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because last night at the event when he announced the
we know you were there. You broke the news.
Listen,
yes.
Representative, please don't start. But yes, we broke the news. And so what are your thoughts about that? Shagun, and I know I had Rivera Consultants on, and I know sometimes we don't necessarily move to stand people, but when there are values and proven work, what are your thoughts around this appointment? And as an indicator, because you did say it comes down to policy and programming, and if you know this, brother, things are going to be very interesting when it comes to the Office of Economic, and it's changed. It's not just development. It's now changed to the Office of Economic Opportunity, because they've been developing for years, but the opportunities have been, excuse me.
Sure, no, language matters, and impact matters most of all. I mean, I know we'll get back to in this interview and perhaps in a follow-up interview about the Build Back Better Act, but, again, I think that's the point, is that in this moment, when you're talking about not just recovering from a pandemic, but righting and reversing the wrongs of the past, of generations of underinvestment, of policy violence, of city budgets that have not codified the value of every life, We have to advance policies and have leaders who will go as bold and move as deeply as the hurt is. And those inequities and disparities and sobering statistics that we share all the time about Boston and the Massachusetts 7th, if you're tired of hearing them, people are tired of living it. And this is the opportunity for transformative, impactful, meaningful change that people can see and feel all around them. And in the same way that I said I had confidence in Mayor Wu's visionary leadership and her ability to attack things both in the macro and the micro, as she said in her election night victory speech, both to we can do big things, we can do hard things, and we can also make sure that the potholes are fixed. So, I mean, that is the job of a mayor. That is the job of an urban mayor. It's the toughest job, honestly. And I also have confidence in her ability to build a dynamic team.
Yeah.
And so she has done that with the addition of Shagun Idowu, someone that I count as a dear friend and also a valued partner in this work. We're excited about diverse leadership, but what matters the most, and there'll really be a new day dawning, is when we see changes in the outcomes. And we no longer have that stark life expectancy gap and racial wealth gap. And that does begin with wealth building. That has everything to do with contracting and has everything to do with making sure that the policies that we have fought for are being enforced. When I was on the city council, I introduced an ordinance around minority contracting to increase our spend. Then Councilor Wu joined me in that endeavor. Ultimately, that ordinance was passed under the Walsh administration. But every law is only as good as its enforcement.
That's right. And
because Shagun has experienced this in every way, first of all, let's just take a moment once again to just acknowledge the soil of Roxbury and what it produces. It produces excellence, genius, innovators. And we certainly see that in Shagun. So here's a Black man, a native son of Roxbury, who knows this city very well. And so he knows the realities and the work that needs to be done. He worked in city government, actually in Councilor Yancey's office. Yep. For a number of years. So he's been in the building. He understands the departments, the agencies, how they work together, where there are gaps. And then with this, and of course he ran for office. And so was on the doors, having meaningful conversation with people, better understanding the nuances of our challenges. And then in his role at BECMA. I think his leadership has been transformative in that role. And that is why now people, in many ways, finally get it, that there could never be a thriving business community in the city of Boston without a thriving Black business community in the city of Boston. And as I say, I don't give anyone anything. Mayor Wu earned my endorsement and my support. And I made sure she knew that I plan to, and certainly the Black community plans to, the whole city, but I want to speak specifically to Black Boston, to hold her accountable. And so we're excited about historic and diverse representation, but the seats that matter here will be in the outcomes. Will we grow Black home ownership, which is the lowest that it's been in 6 decades? Will we see an increase in that spend with minority contractors? Will we make sure that our restaurants and our micro businesses owned by Black and brown folks, that if they had to shutter their doors during the pandemic, that they can reopen them, that they can recover? Will we address these disparate health outcomes with robust investments in our community health centers? Will we? I mean, and so I guess the answer is, I believe we have great promise under the leadership of this new administration. Yep. And I'm optimistic and hopeful because they're clear about what the stakes are.
Absolutely. And so, Congresswoman, to take it back, because we know that all politics are local, but the trickle down from what happens and what you're doing, I believe now is set up in a manner to trickle, better And so let's go back, because Kenya Beeman from Mattapan was asking, and I'm sure you're able to do this and know it well, is a little bit of a breakdown of the impact. You cited some things around prescription drug rates. You cited a few other things. And so as much time as you have, it's yours to really go into either the impact or breaking down how this really, the historic moment, and how, as you said, it's going to translate back down into policy. Ma'am, the floor is yours. I'm going to turn my mic off, and please educate the people. And also at the end, let us know what it is we need to do to continually support you to make sure that this gets all the way over the line and then makes it down in trickles.
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, this is again, it's tremendous that the Build Back Better Act passed the House today. I worked very hard, to hold the line to ensure that we were passing the most inclusive, boldest bill possible that would not leave any worker, any family, or any community behind. And the House has done that. But our job is not done. So I want to be very clear about that. Now this goes to the Senate, and we need them to take this bill up, and we'll be fighting to make sure that they preserve all the things that I fought for to be in there. And then we have to get this to the president's desk for signature. So this is not law yet. So this is a great day, and we've advanced this transformative legislation, but we still need to get this across the finish line now. But here are the things that I fought for. And this is real and tangible impact. So combating the housing crisis, rebuilding our crumbling housing stock. My bill is in there to help first-time home buyers purchase a home. My legislation, a down payment for equity. And this is going to help us close the racial wealth gap in the Massachusetts 7. We've got universal paid family and medical leave, so workers are not forced to choose between their jobs and caring for themselves. Listen, y'all, you know, I was a caregiver to my mother. At some point, all of us will care for someone or need to be cared for. And the fact that we are the only country in the globe that does not offer paid family medical leave is unconscionable, and we change that. And this is also going to help the millions of workers, Black and brown women disproportionately, who've been pushed out of the workforce, because 2 million plus women were pushed out of the workforce during the pandemic. Economists have called it more than a recession. They call it a she-session. And the reason why women left that workforce is because of the cost of childcare and because of no paid family and medical leave. And I'll pick up on that point in a moment. Investing in home and community-based services for the disabled and elderly, so folks don't have to wait years on waiting lists. And also, we're paying those home care workers livable wages. I don't know if folks get this, but nearly 30% of these workers who do home and community-based services for the disabled and elderly are, nearly 30% of those workers are Black. And 1 in 6 of those workers live in poverty. And so these are many of the workers that we applauded as frontline essential workers throughout the pandemic, but then when it's time to compensate them, not so much. You know, maybe we value your labor, but not really your life and that of your family. Mm-hmm. This bill, Build Back Better, cuts the cost of childcare in half, ensures that you are not paying no more than 7% of your income on childcare. Massachusetts is a very expensive, cost of living, place to live, high cost of living. Second highest cost of childcare in the country, $21,000 per child for center-based childcare. Okay, so even before the pandemic hit, Black workers were 2 times more likely to be forced out of the workforce due to challenges accessing childcare. So these investments are a matter of racial and economic justice for our communities. And just like I was telling you about, hey, we made an investment in home and community-based services for the disabled and elderly. But by the way, it's not just about those who need those services. We're going to support that workforce with livable wages. The same is true for childcare workers. Most of them are Black and brown women who take care of our babies and can't take care of their own. I want to spend time with this workforce. They're getting paid anemic wages. They have bachelor's degrees, and they're making $30,000 to $34,000 a year. And these are people that we are trusting with determining the life trajectory of our babies, and they can't take care of their own. Mm-hmm. That's addressed in the Build Back Better Act. We invested an unprecedented $5 billion, and you'll really care about this, Jimmy, because of the work we've done together on trauma. $5 billion to expand community violence intervention programs and trauma-informed community care.
Wait,
So
hold on,
this is
Congresswoman. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to interrupt you, but this is a sweet spot, not sweet. You know what I mean? This is something that you said that we've worked together on since you $5
billion to expand community violence intervention programs and trauma-informed community care. So, and I'll come back to talk about that, because what I'm going to be doing, to Kenya's point, look, this isn't a one-off. I'll come back to this show anytime.
Yes, ma'am.
But we will also be doing, as we've done with the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan, Zooms, town halls, webinars, so that people know, once we get this across the finish line, what is in the bill and how people can access these services. So, this has been our heart's work, Jimmy.
Yes, ma'am.
And I fought hard for these dedicated resources that could support community-based organizations really doing the work to reduce violence and to support healing. Another thing that is in here, also my legislation, combating the Black maternal morbidity crisis, and advancing maternal health justice. So we extended postpartum Medicaid coverage for 1 year. Okay, and that is directly from my bill with Senator Booker, the Mommies Act. Okay, and then finally combating the existential threat of climate change that is disproportionately borne on all our Black and brown frontline communities, especially Roxbury, Chinatown, East Boston, and also in the Massachusetts 7th, the city of Chelsea. And then Kenny was asking the question about expanding Medicare coverage and the lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Yes, we're putting a cap. First of all, the prices of these drugs can be negotiated by the government, and there's a cap that it does not go over $35. So if you look at something like insulin, here's a drug that has not changed in 100 years, but has increased in price by 400%. Jimmy, I had a mother come before me. She had 3 children, all with diabetes. She was rationing their insulin. I'm getting emotional talking about it. And her 16-year-old daughter died because she was rationing insulin. And that's a, as Representative Tlaib so often talks about, it's like greed, is a disease and takes people's lives. That mother, 3 children with diabetes, rationing insulin because she couldn't afford it. A drug that hasn't changed in 100 years, but increased in price by 400%. So we're talking about insulin, EpiPens, people, elders and others choosing between paying their rent, remaining sheltered, or purchasing life-saving medication, that they need. That's the sort of investments that we're talking about in the Build Back Better Act. So, this is top line what I'm offering to you right now. But again, this isn't a one-off. I'll come back anytime about anything. But just also know my district office, which is in Hyde Park, we will be doing virtually and teletown halls, webinars, Zooms with different constituency groups, Main Streets organizations, every constituency possible to make sure people know what is in this bill and how they can access these funds and what the impact will be in your lives. But the housing piece also, what this is going to mean in terms of closing the racial wealth gap, increasing opportunities for Black home ownership in particularly, and investments in public housing. I have a huge public housing footprint in my district. I spend time with seniors who are living in homes that have not had upgrades or maintenance since the 1930s when they were built. People whose units haven't been painted in 20 years, living with raw backup sewage, black mold, rodent infestation. Just because you can't afford more doesn't mean you don't deserve better.
That's right.
And so finally, huge federal investment in our public housing. And then also investments in vouchers. How long have those wait lists been? So we're going to, reduce those wait lists, expand vouchers, grow Black home ownership, repair public housing. And these are just the top line. So when I say this is game changing and transformative, and you will feel the real and tangible impact, I mean it. I've been at this a long time. There's never been anything like it. But you know what? We've never experienced hurt like this. Unprecedented is the word du jour. And so we needed the Build Back Better Act to meet the moment. and to ensure that we don't just recover to a pre-COVID unjust status quo normal, but that we are truly charting a path for a more just city of Boston, Commonwealth, and country. And we're on our way. But we got to get the Senate. We're calling on them to take this up. I'll be working with our Senate, partners and applying pressure to those folks who are not always partners to make sure that all these gains that we have fought for and these investments that they stay in. So.
Absolutely. Congresswoman, the team is letting me know you have you probably have some legacy media, as I was taught a term by Boston Business Journal last night, some legacy media. But I appreciate you coming in and spending time with what I call local hood media. And also, I met the owner of Ebony Magazine, the CEO of Ebony Magazine last night, and she talked about listen, Michelle Gee, listen. Anyway. Often, as you've mentioned, that these are important platforms in order to make sure that the community, your constituency, that may, tune out of legacy media, tunes in here often. And so, Congresswoman, we really appreciate you. And know if you need any support or pulling some folks in, you want to do a town hall, whatever, Java with Jimmy is definitely there to support you and host and help. And so this is something, as you said, that we've worked on for years in a lot of spaces. And so I'm here to support you.
That's right. $5 billion.
$5 billion. Congresswoman, don't get me started.
$5 billion to expand community violence intervention programs and trauma-informed community care. Okay?
Absolutely.
To get these resources to the organizations really doing the work. So, so many things to celebrate, but we got to keep working and get this across the finish line. Thank you for the important role that you play. As I've said so many times before, everyone has a role to play in the movement. We are still very much in the civil rights movement. Some people are going to raise, a fist. Others will raise their voice. Some will make the sign. Some will pack the lunches. Some will be on the front lines marching, and some will lift a microphone. And so, for that, we thank you for this important platform, for keeping the community engaged and informed. And we also thank you for informing our joy, too. We're just so very proud of you and so grateful for you. And I will be back.
Yes. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And the team just told me we're going to still let you go, but this was the only media that you're doing today. So, and I'll say this with respect, because I know you're my sister, Ayanna. I really appreciate you, not just for things like this, but the advocacy. And a lot of people locally do not understand the transition. And I was one of them. I felt like we missed you and we lost you, but now we see the evidence of the expansion of your work. And so I'm going to get started. Congresswoman, I love you.
No, listen, definitely let's just make sure we'll stay in touch, okay? Because we want to get the word out to folks and make sure that they're connecting to these resources, just like when you had us on to talk about how to access the child tax credit. And we hear from people every day about what that impact has been, in their lives and why we were fighting to make that permanent. So we'll be back, okay? All right, everyone, have a great day.
Thank you. Everyone, that was our Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who's talking about all the wonderful work that she is doing in Washington, D.C. around the Build Better Act. It was her first interview and the only interview in media she's doing today. So I'm honored about that. I fight with this thing about being media and press, because in some spaces, where I want to inform policy and programming, they may not let me in. I was told one of the reasons maybe I wasn't at the police meeting was because they may consider me as press. And so, I'm embracing that, but it's not really press or legacy media. It's just ensuring and facilitating that these messages and clarity and information and education gets to those that don't tune into legacy media, because legacy media is filled with so much negativity. And so with that being said, please come back for a third Java with Jimmy today. Full menu today. Dr. Brenda, I keep saying doctor. I need to find out for sure if she's a doctor. Brenda Casilius, the superintendent of Boston Public Schools, will be with us today at 1 p.m. And so please plan to come back. And then I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for those that tuned in. Please share this cup of Java so people who need this information know that they can get ready to access it. The other thing is we need to make sure that when it trickles down to the state and then to the city, that it trickles down properly. Thank you all for tuning in today, and we will see you back today at 1 p.m. All right. Appreciate all of you. And I'm going to go try to get something to eat and get some rest before 1 o'clock. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace.